Welcome back in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365, July 8th on the other side of July 4th. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Joined now by Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports. Jeff Kerr, how you doing, man? How was your 4th of July, brother?
Worked a lot. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it never stops for us, Jeff. Plus, you're doing baseball, and obviously, big time of year for baseball, the Phillies, and big series they had. But I did you get any time to watch Hard Knocks at all?
Oh my god, yeah. So Tuesday night, I didn't get to see it when it premiered. I watched it Wednesday morning, and we're in the content creation game. Oh, there were at least 5 or 6 articles coming out for me on that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of in like, where are you in the aspect from Joe Shane, and obviously locally it became a big thing with the Eagles because of Saquon Barkley, and particularly the personnel meeting. Boy, nobody's going to ever want to do the show again, Jeff. This off-season show. I mean, I've argued they should have canceled Hard Knocks years ago because nobody wants to do the regular Hard Knocks because, competitive advantage, which I kind of snicker out. That kind of stuff is goopy. But now you have cameras in personnel meetings, and you're having honest and frank discussions, and you're getting vilified for it in many circles, not all, but many circles who don't understand. Like, from an Eagles perspective, can you imagine if there were cameras on Howie Roseman and company while they were discussing Hassan Reddick in the offseason, how that would have went over? I mean,
Hassan Reddick would have been all over Twitter like AJ Brown was over the Saquon Barkley comments.
do people not understand? And I don't even blame fans. I'm talking about media people, Jeff. Do they not understand that there are frank discussions of all players in the NFL? Because it's ironic to me, and I'm not going to single people out, but you can certainly figure out one nationally at least. Dave Gettleman used to be the butt of jokes for drafting Saquon number 2 overall. And now you have Joe Shane making, to be perfectly honest, for the New York Giants,
which, by the way,
yes, is a different decision than perhaps the Philadelphia Eagles. So because it's a good decision to move on from Saquon Barkley by the New York Giants doesn't mean it's a bad decision by the Eagles for signing him. They're in different sort of cycles. The Eagles, legitimate contender. Giants are obviously rebuilding. Why do people not see this?
I think everything's hindsight's 2020, right, John? And to me, I actually thought one of the funny. I chuckled at this moment. Do you remember when they were evaluating running backs, and DeAndre Swift came up, and Brandon Brown's like, "Oh yeah, good luck getting him out of Philly," or if he would have talked to John McMullen and Jeff Kerr, we could have told him, "You do know you can get him. He's not exactly happy with his current situation right now, and you can get him for the price that. Oh, by the way, you were right on $8 million a year." So. Yeah. People seem to ignore that aspect of it too. Like I thought it was a really good episode. I thought it was very informative. But you're right. It just seems like, oh, you can't be mean to these players. What do you mean you can't be mean to them? They make millions and millions of dollars.
And by the way, they're not being mean.
No, not at all. It's an honest evaluation. Like,
yeah.
I mean, look. Thanks for giving AJ Brown fodder, I guess, but AJ Brown doesn't get that fodder if that episode doesn't air, so no one's ever going to do it.
Yeah, well, they're going to be forced, but nobody's going to want to do it. The NFL forces people to do the regular Hard Knocks now because they have to, and ultimately, if they want to keep this one going, the off-season one, they're going to have to force people right away. Because I'm telling you, Jeff, nobody is going to want their conversations on video if people are going to take it this way. And by the way, even players, I'm not even criticizing AJ because players are different from the perspective of, obviously it's very personal to them. And I get it from their perspective, and I'm criticizing my own media people got to know better. I mean, these conversations happen all the time. the Eagles are having conversations about Jalen Hurts that they don't want out there.
You know what's frustrating, John? We're not even like criticizing like people we know in the media. It's people that are supposedly these well-respected national analysts who are the quote-unquote smartest people in the room, and they don't know this. Well, what do you think happens in these meetings?
Yeah, it really was a head shaker for me. I'm like, what exactly? What do you think they're talking about? Everything's lollipops and the
dandelions and roses.
I mean, what are you talking about? They won, what, 30%, 35% of their games with Saquon Barkley?
They were 6-11 last season. Do you think it's going to be a great conversation?
I don't get it.
By the way, I thought the Giants GM was right about it.
No, he was
about it.
He was right.
First.
For that circumstance, he's right. And he said, look, Patrick Mahomes couldn't be successful with our offensive line.
By the way, that was a quote. That was a quote.
Yeah. We got to get skill position players, and they, maybe they finally have a receiver. For them, a $12-13 million running back is a luxury. For the Eagles,
they did play a poker game with that because they didn't bank on anyone actually paying him $12 million, and it turned out it was their division. That's what made that episode so compelling, I thought.
Yeah, and that's where everybody went, because he had the quote. Joe had the quote of, we're not paying a $40 million quarterback to hand off to a $12 million running back or something. Paraphrasing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, and everybody immediately jumped on. Well, the Eagles are paying a $51 million quarterback to hand off to a $12-13 million running back. And I'm like, come on, guys. It's not the same circumstance. Yeah.
It's not like the Giants are in a much different position than the Eagles are in. We just have to be realistic on that. It's same with Washington, right? If Washington signs him for that money, that's a great deal for them because they got a running back. Oh, by the way, your quarterback's on a rookie deal, and you're pairing him with a Jane Daniels, for example. I just wish, and again, this not criticizing fans here. I just think this is social media in general. Not every team is the same as your team. Stop. Exactly. Watch more than your football team. You will learn some things.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah,
definitely. Good point, Jeff. As we're talking about Saquon Barkley, he's now here in Philly. What's your just real quick? I know we've talked about it before, but as we get closer to camp, what's your inkling on the kind of impact he'll have on the team here? Obviously, one man's trash is another man's treasure, is what they say. Well, Giants let him go, and we pick him up. What do you think he does here in Philly?
I mean, I think he's going to have a good 2 years here, personally. Like, do I think he's going to be this all-world, Saquon Barkley that a lot of people may remember from Penn State in his early years with the Giants? No, I don't, but it's not like he's a bad player. He's a tremendous upgrade over what they had last year. You don't need a backup running back. But by the way, the Giants got that right, too, with DeAndre Swift. Like, oh, look, he's perfect in running back by committee. Well, the Eagles, they thought it was going to be Swift and Penny. Obviously, Rashad Penny didn't pan out. And then they tried to do the Swift Kenny Gainwell thing, and it didn't help out DeAndre Swift. So left DeAndre Swift on an island. Well, now you can have that island because you have Saquon Barkley as long as he's healthy. Look, I like what Barkley brings to them. I think that's a guy that he's not going to be the focal point. You got AJ Brown, you got Devonta Smith. Guys like Saquon Barkley are just I treat Saquon Barkley as kind of like he's a Kyle Schwarber type player. Yeah, I'm using a baseball analogy here, but the Phillies have Bryce Harper, you got Trey Turner, you got JT Realmuto, then you got Saquon Barkley, who pretty much is going to be like an option, but he's still a good player. He still could be a Pro Bowl or an All Pro. You got one of the better running backs in football. I'm just curious to see how they use him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting part. And they've had good receiving backs before. They haven't utilized them. So in a lot of ways, I think it requires a sort of readjustment from the offense and forcing it to a certain degree. If that's the case, maybe Kellen Moore's the guy who can do that. But that to me is the bigger question. Not can Saquon, do it because he can do it at a level that can help you. He's not going to be a third receiver, as some nut jobs think, but he's a good receiver out of the backfield. But so is DeAndre Swift, so is Kenny Gainwell, who's still here. It requires an adjustment from the offense. And is that a good thing? Do you want to make that adjustment? Is the bigger question.
You should. By the way, when I was doing some evaluations of DeAndre Swift last week, just because of the Hard Knocks episode, I knew he didn't have his normal 50, 60 catches. But I looked at the targets, and I'm like, I knew the Eagles didn't use that guy right, but I thought they did an injustice to DeAndre Swift last year by not giving him the football in terms of in the passing game. Like, that's his strength, and you just did not use it.
No, they did. Remember week 1, they had him lining up with the receivers in preparation before the Patriots game? And
I do remember
like,
that. Yeah, I remember you and I were watching that.
Yeah. We're like, whoa, what's going on here? They're trying to fool Bill Belichick, and we all dutifully reported it like we were
we all were on the phone
Russian propaganda, like the morons we are. And I'm criticizing myself amongst them. It turned out to be nothing, just gamesmanship. And, maybe that's okay for 1 week, but it turned out to be nothing for the entire year, which is concerns me because we know he's a good receiving back from his time in Detroit. We know it. We saw it. And they didn't use it. Now, why did they use it? Is it because Nick Sirianni's an idiot, which people want to lean on? Or is it because the quarterback isn't comfortable or doesn't want to use it?
That's $1 million. That's a $51 million question. Honestly, and he's never really focused on throwing to running backs. This is why the whole Brian Johnson Washington thing fascinates me so much, because you brought up back in like Austin Eckler, who, again, he's like DeAndre Swift. That's his strength, and they're combining his philosophies with Cliff Kingsbury's philosophies. And I want to see how they use Eckler in Washington, because they didn't do it with DeAndre Swift here. And Brian Johnson was the whipping boy for it. And Nick Sirianni just kept saying, it's my offense, my offense, it's my offense. Well, does your offense revolve passing to the running back? Or it's a fair question, John.
Well, it did in Indianapolis. It did in Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers as the quarterback. And that's been my point from the start. Nyheim Hines caught 60-something receptions in that year. Jonathan Taylor was over 30. So you're talking about a combined 90 plus from the two running backs.
And they didn't have a receiver either to throw the ball. I guess they had. They had Pittman his last year?
Well, the larger point, I'm not sure, but the larger point is you had a quarterback comfortable doing it, wanted to do it, and they built the offense around the quarterback, which I think, by the way, is what you do, what you should do.
That's what successful teams do.
Yes. My question is, do you want to build it around this particular quarterback? I'm not sure I do. So I'm not sure I disagree with the Eagles, the Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson Eagles. I'm not sure I want to pound the square peg in the round hole here. Give me Phillip Rivers. Yeah, I'm all, throw it to Saquon 70 times. I'd be all on board. Yeah, by all means.
And maybe that's what the DeAndre Swift thing was about. Square peg, round hole. It's Saquon Barkley doesn't need to catch the football to be effective.
What's the happy median, though? Like, because I agree with, in a way, I see both sides of it. Where I'm with John, where I'm like, I don't want Jalen Hurts to become Brock Purdy, but how little is too little, and then how much is too much? What's the gray area there on just trying to add it to his repertoire to make him a little better? I'm not trying to turn him into a quarterback that only throws to running backs all over the place, but is what he's done to this point too little? Is that fair to say?
take that one, John?
Say it again. I thought Jeff was jumping in.
No, I was
mean,
just saying,
jump.
how
I mean,
much
I
is
can
too
jump
much
in.
or how little is too little? What's the happy medium with getting the running back into the running game? I mean, I don't want to turn him into Brock
From
Purdy,
my
but
perspective, a little bit more than last season, but not a ton. Like I said, the most notable way I would have gotten DeAndre Swift involved was putting him out there for some of those stupid bubble screens. I say it all the time because a bubble screen demands it demands good blocking, but even if you're blocking correctly, you need the receiver, whoever that is, to make that first guy miss, right? And go.
That
And
clearly did not happen last year.
yeah, wouldn't a running back be better suited for that if he can catch the football than a typical receiver? I think so.
Is it
And that's
bad?
where
Is it
that's where I
bad
would
that I thought their most effective bubble screen was Britton Covey's only catch?
no. You know, I that's another conversation. We'll get into the wide receiver 3 conversation after this, but with the case of that type of thing, what I don't want is, utilizing the running back as a crutch with this particular quarterback. So it is a fine line, Xander. And it's got to improve a little bit, but I don't think it's got to change. I don't think the offense should change. I've heard too much about the offense changing. Like I want to take advantage of the quarterback. And to me, if you're just dumping it off, again, I use the Brock Purdy as sort of an homage to my ex-partner Jody because he loves Brock Purdy. I don't want to turn him into Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's the guy. All right, get the football out of his hands. Let him be a point guard. You don't have a point guard. You have a scorer if you're the Eagles. So why would you? It's like Mo Cheeks versus
AI.
AI. Somebody's just gonna, score, and find ways to make plays versus the guy who's the traditional quarterback.
Yeah,
I don't want to turn him into a traditional quarterback.
I like that analogy, John. It's like we'll bring up the NBA again. Teams didn't want DeMar DeRozan right away because he was just a scorer. And they're like, well, we need this. We need a point guard. We need this. We need that. Well, it took the right fit. The Sacramento Kings, you're not paying DeMar DeRozan to pass the ball. No, he's a 20-point per game shooter. He's a high-volume shooter. He can drive the lane. That's what you get. It's like Jalen Hurts. You want Jalen Hurts scoring touchdowns. You want him throwing deep balls. Yeah. So that's where I agree with you. I wanted to pass the ball to Saquon Barkley too, but I also wanted to pass the ball to DeAndre Swift last year. And by week 5, I was like, well, okay, this ain't gonna happen.
It's an interesting comment here I want to bring up from Shonuff, because I agree with you guys in that you don't want to turn him to Purdy. He says we need Hurts to be at least 30% Purdy. We have
That's
too many
fair.
weapons on offense not to. I think that's a good point. I don't think you want to turn him into Purdy, but every once in a while, playing that style of play is not a bad thing when you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, and all these
has A.J.
players
Brown
around.
not been effective with Jalen Hurts? Has Devontae
He
Smith
has
not been
There's no doubt
effective?
about that.
Oh, that's why they got paid, because they're
But what
not
did that get
effective.
you
No.
last year, John? I mean,
Yeah, but I think people are being overreactionary to the collapse, which I know is difficult, but
I'll
you
be
know what?
overreactionary on the defensive side of the ball to the collapse.
Yeah, exactly. I think it still had more to do with the defense. Not to say the offense played well, because they didn't. But I still think it had more to do with the defense, number one. But I think people, it's ironic because obviously the offense is still much better than the defense on paper for this team. But I think everybody's less concerned about the defense because they put more value on coaching than they should. Not that Bick isn't a very good coach, because he's a very good coach, but the players play. Everybody says it. Bick was the first one to say it. Give me good players first and foremost. They're the guys out there performing. And these offensive players that people are talking about have already performed at a very high level with Jalen Hurts winning 29 of 32 games at one point. Like, why isn't that's the larger sample size? Why aren't you where I agree with people and I agree with the commenter? I don't want to put 20-30% more Purdy because I think, what does that even mean? But I think you try to evolve the quarterback in his weaknesses, and you try to get him better at certain things. And that's where I want Jalen Hurts. I want him to get a little bit better at getting the football out of his hands quicker in certain situations, a little bit better on maybe taking what's there, dumping it off to the running back, but not drastically changing his mindset or his game.
I think what's tough about this all season is where you put a positive or negative spin, and this is every team, by the way, on the quarterback, it's going to get engagement. Is Jalen Hurts a leader? Can Jalen Hurts replicate 2022? It just seems to be the same thing. My only qualm with Jalen Hurts this whole summer is you were at the Devonta Smith softball game and you had a chance to just kill everything and you didn't do it. And that's fine. You don't want to give in to the rat poison, but don't be upset. He probably isn't anyway, but you can't be upset when you're going to get 10 of these questions on the first day you speak to the media at training camp when you could have avoided all 10 just by, hey, look, I just blanked.
And that's why the Eagles were disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jalen Hurts might not care. Bob Lang does. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He's got to weather the storm.
Unnecessary controversy.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all it is.
And by the way, at the same softball game, Devontae was asked the question, handled it beautifully. He's like, oh, he's doing a great job.
Yeah. I don't think the Eagles are any disappointed in anything Devonta Smith does.
Yeah, he put on like a small master class on how to answer that question, which was pretty funny.
But,
Let me go to this.
By the way, John, that would be a Hard Knocks I would watch. A team's
the softball game?
No, no. I would love to watch the conversation between PR and the player before they go out there and talk to us. That would be the greatest Hard Knocks of all time. Because we all know, but that'd be sweet.
The Eagles would be a great franchise in general for a Hard Knocks. I don't know if they'll ever grant it. Maybe they'll be forced into it. But
all or nothing, but it wasn't Hard Knocks.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, they did the Amazon
one, Jeff.
Yeah, they did the Amazon.
That was the Amazon one?
Yeah, that was 2018.
Yeah.
Which basically was a bunch of WYP clips around.
It was. If you like listening to the morning, a highlight combination of the morning, afternoon, and evening show,
yeah,
you liked All or Nothing.
Let me hit this super chat real quick. Our buddy Prince drops us $5. Prince, thank you, man. Appreciate you being in the chat. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Drop a like if you guys are watching and enjoying the show. Prince says Nick doesn't know how to build a scheme that fits Jalen's skill set. Hence, John keeps mentioning Rivers. Shane was able to last 7 games.
Nick built the damn scheme.
Yeah, I don't know
it's
about
Nick's
that
scheme.
Yeah, it was Nick's offense in 22.
Yeah.
It was Nick's offense in 23. Nothing changed there.
Yeah. Is that where play calling does come into it though? Because John, I'm with you where it's like we don't judge play calling, we judge the results. But is there an element there where the coach's job is to put players in positions to succeed? And was that missing in those last 7 games? I know Jalen didn't play great. Nobody played great last year in the last 7 games. But was there a lack of coaching that failed to put them in the right positions to succeed?
Well, I think if you want to criticize the coaching, I think you criticize the teaching aspect of the coaching. I do think Shane has a better feel than Nick or Brian.
Well, that's why he's a head coach.
Yeah.
And a good one, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, as a play caller, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's a different job than a head coach because I'd say it all the time. Kyle Shanahan's, Kyle's the best play caller in the NFL, but he's not the best head coach in the NFL. Because he screws up some things because he's so bogged down with play calling. But yeah, there's a feel to it. You'll see it this year with Vic Fangio. Vic's got a good feel for pulling out the right thing at the right time. Because he's going to be running the same scheme as Sean Desai, and it's going to look better. So I'm not dismissing it, and Shane was very good at it, and I have a lot of respect for Shane. He had a great feel for the callback, I like to call it. So he would set people up. He would show maybe bubble screen. I always go back to the Zach Pascal touchdown. There were, you probably remember it because there weren't a lot.
Yeah.
So Zach Pascal was a blocking receiver, and they ran twice. They ran bubble screen, and obviously the third time when they went for it in a big situation, he faked the block, and obviously everybody jumps it because it's Zach stinking Pascal, and all of a sudden he's behind the whole defense for an easy touchdown. He had a great feel for that kind of stuff. Now, again, the Gardner Minshew game when he threw the pick six to Marcus Lattimore, he tried to call back on that particular play, on that particular pick six, and Marcus was like, it's one of the best cornerbacks in football. And all of a sudden you get bit.
Get paid like one. He already got paid. He's gonna get paid.
Yeah, he's a great player, and he knew what was coming, and Shane got bit by it. So it's always sort of cat and mouse game, but overall Shane's very good at it. And I'm not trying to dismiss that, but Shane would be the first one to tell you that was Nick's offense. So he built the scheme, and Shane was the play caller. So to assume that he can't build a scheme, and that was, by the way, the strength of Nick Sirianni coming in was being able. Remember what happened at quarterback in Indianapolis. Andrew Luck was the superstar, got hurt, retired early. They had to ship gears to Jacoby Brissett. They had to ship gears to Phillip Rivers, and then Phillip retired. Different offense built around different quarterback.
By the way, John,
years.
Was I on with you? Well, no, I was on with you last week, but when did that whole stupid thing blow up about, the Eagles wanted Andrew Luck? Of course they wanted Andrew Luck.
Everybody wanted Andrew Luck.
Oh, they were going to trade up to number one. I'm like, why is this a story? I can tell you so many stories I've heard from people from the 1999 draft, who they wanted, who they didn't want. Should I write that for CBSSports.com? Would it be engaging for people?
Probably.
Why? Like, we all know what happened.
Like certain someone is a fit for the Eagles. If I read another one of those stinking stories from my own outlet, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. But that's just part of what it is, unfortunately, from modern journalism.
You and Ed Krasser can write them, right?
No. You look at the byline. It ain't me.
I know. There's multiple people that write there now. I know.
Yeah, it ain't us. And it drives me insane. But that's a little inside baseball. And I'll probably get in trouble for it. But who cares? It was interesting though. Justin Pugh, the offensive lineman, the longtime Giants, came out of, I don't know, retirement, but signed with the Giants last year. It was interesting because he was talking about Hard Knocks and Saquon and all the stuff on social media, and he revealed something. The Eagles were trying to sign Justin Pugh last year, which I remember a little bit.
Justin Pugh had a good year last year for them, by the way.
Yeah, he's a solid player. Obviously, he's aging. But it was when Cam Jurgens was hurt with, wasn't the pec. What did he have first, Jeff? Foot injury, I think.
Yeah, it was the foot injury because it definitely wasn't when he had the pec.
Yeah, so it was when he missed 5 games with the foot injury. And the Eagles were trying to sign Justin Pugh when they were 7-0. And he had a strong loyalty to the Giants. It's interesting because he grew up an Eagles fan from the area, but obviously the Giants made him a first-round pick. Played there for 4 or 5 years. Then he went to Arizona, but he had tremendous loyalty to the Giants, signed with the Giants, could have signed with the Eagles. I thought it was interesting because it was a clear indication that the Eagles weren't happy with Sua Opeta or Tyler Steen, and they were trying to bring in a guy they knew that could play.
John, what were your thoughts on Sua Opeta? I always liked the guy personally, but I'm like, I just don't think he has it to play every day on Sunday.
Tremendous guy.
Yeah.
Looks like he will kill you, and is the nicest guy in the world. He is he'd be a great movie villain.
He actually would. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got an intimidating look, but he's the nicest guy in the world.
We had a funny little conversation last year. So last year it was around like week 15 weeks. It was probably the happiest I've ever seen that locker room during the collapse. But I was talking to I forget how the conversation started, but Fred Johnson calls me over and say, "Hey, are you looking up like what we were in high school?" I said, "Yeah, it was Thomas Booker. We were looking up what he was in high school. He was a 4-star recruit when he was getting recruited to college." And Fred Johnson goes, "Wait, are you like looking at like you have like the database for?" I'm like, "Yeah, I work for CBS. I got a database for all you guys because we're merging 24/7." And all the players start coming over, and Suopeta goes to me, "Oh, like he's like, I'm probably not under Suopeta." I'm like, "Yeah, I know what your real name is." He just started laughing. Like it was kind of cool though. Like he was a no-star recruit. There were a couple of those guys that were no-star recruits. I totally forgot about that. I'm like, it's actually amazing how these guys get to the NFL.
Yeah.
Think about the whole thing. But I remember like Brandon Graham like looks over, he goes, I don't need you to tell me what I was. I'm like, "Yeah, I know you're a 5-star recruit."
How do you pronounce it? It's Iosua, but it's spelled that way.
I think that's actually how you say it. I just spelled it like because I knew like it wasn't Suopeta. But
by the way, check out Weber State. Sua's from Weber State. Check out the strength numbers of the Weber State prospects.
Is it
I don't know
Weber?
what they're doing.
Is it not Weber State? Weber?
I thought
Weber?
it was Weber.
It might be Weber. It is spelled, I guess, Weber. Yeah.
I don't know.
Do we have to ask Damian Lillard? Should we give him a call?
Yeah.
Get Dame on here, Jeff. Yeah.
But either way, there's a handful of guys from Weber, whatever.
It's Weber. Joey B says it's Weber. I trust our man Joey B.
Yeah, Weber. That's what I did. So I'm gonna. All right, I should have trusted.
Sorry,
myself.
John. I
Thanks,
jumped
Joey.
in. I thought it was Weber.
Thanks, Joey. Check it out, Jeff. They're all monsters. They all have these ridiculous bench press records. Sua, I think, put up like 40 reps at 225.
I do remember that at the combine. I'm like, where did this guy come from? Never heard of him.
They're all, I don't know what they're doing out in Weber State, which is in Utah, I believe.
Well, that's it. It's in Utah.
Yeah.
You know what they do out there.
They hunt, they fish, and they lift.
Yeah. It is unbelievable, though. It is unbelievable.
So I'm always one of those guys when I go visit a state. I'm really good at knowing state names. And when I was in Utah for the first time, I'm like, why are you guys called the Beehive State? Like, seriously, why are you? And no one could give me an answer. I'm like, do you guys like have a lot of bees or something? Like you got beekeepers? Like no one could give me an answer on why it's called this. And they're like, well, what state are you from? Like Pennsylvania. And they're like, why are you called the Keystone State? Obviously, I give the answer, but you guys can't tell me why your state name isn't this. Like,
John's the Garden State, New Jersey. The Garden State. Some of the best
gardens. There's a lot of gardens.
There are no gardens.
There's a lot of gardens in New Jersey. That in between the factories bring out toxic gas. Drive up the turnpike going to New York.
There's plenty of gardens there.
Yeah.
It should be the rest stops.
Don't open the window, though.
John, I got a super chat address to you. I want to hit it real quick from our buddy Prince. Drops us another 5. He's pushing back. He says, John, why weren't they able to make adjustments in the last 2 months? We went into the playoff with the same scheme and no adjustment.
Well, they didn't go in with the same scheme because they didn't have AJ Brown, number one. But number, I mean, that's obvious. As far as adjustments, again, if you want to blame the coaching staff for teaching, one of my pet peeves is the assumption that, the Eagles have no hot routes. The NFL Eagles don't have any hot routes.
You remember when that was the thing? Where's the hot route in this offense?
Well, it's interesting.
It's still a thing.
Joyner all over Twitter again this week.
And Seth, I love Seth, but I mean, and I'll say the same thing, and I've said the same thing to Seth. I say, come on, dude. I mean, what is a hot route? A hot route is an adjustment at the line of scrimmage by the quarterback and the receiver being on the same page. You saw it a number of times where the Eagles weren't on the same page. Now, who do you want to blame for that? Obviously, fans don't want to blame the players, which, all right, whatever. Don't blame the players. Then blame the teaching of the coaches because they need to to make sure that Jalen Hurts has the tools to not only identify the blitz, but understand where the football needs to go on a certain blitz. And he's got to alert the receivers of what's going on, and they both got to be on the same page. He felt more comfortable just playing the numbers game and throwing it outside with the bubble screen ad nauseum. So if you want to blame the coaching staff, that's fine. And you don't want to blame the quarterback, I get it. But at least blame the right part of it. And that's blame their teaching, blame them not preparing Jalen Hurts to better handle the blitz. Not, oh, they have no hot routes.
They didn't have an answer.
You can go on Friday nights. I live in South Jersey, so you can go to a Sterling High School game or a Haddonfield High School game or a Paula 6 High School game, whatever.
Ocean City.
Anywhere, and you're going to see hot routes because it is a simple thing to assume that an NFL coach who's been around for, 2 decades now. I mean, Nick's 43. Started coaching when he was 23 at Mount Union, but
played football his whole life.
Played football. Oh, and he doesn't know a hot route, but you know a hot route.
But
had Phillip Rivers and thrown him ad nauseum with hot routes. Andrew Luck, every other quarterback he's had ad nauseum.
He's his own college and high school quarterbacks through hot routes.
It's the dumbest criticism, all due respect, Seth. It is the dumbest criticism in the history of mankind. And if you don't want to blame the players, look at the mirror. Is the quarterback and the receiver's fault for not identifying, not being comfortable.
But they all want the quarterback. That's the problem.
They don't. And again, if you want to blame the coaching staff, blame them the proper way for not getting the quarterback prepared to be comfortable doing that type of thing. That's what I would say. But they ran the same stupid bubble screens with Shane Steichen when they were going to the Super Bowl, and you were fine with it.
It was
the same stupid bubble screen.
Same offense last year.
It was the same offense. And I get, and by the way, legitimate person, you do need to evolve because there's going to be adjustments to what you're doing well. People are trying to take away what you're doing well, and you have to adjust to that. That part of it is legitimate. But when Shane was here and they had such success, they were doing the same damn thing, and we were all happy with it.
You know, one of the reasons why the Eagles were so good when Andy Reid was here was because teams took away, we're going to get rid of the quick slant. We're going to get rid of that Bill Walsh West Coast system Andy Reid started with. Okay, we're going to do screens. Okay, well, we'll take that away. Well, now I'm going to do an outpost. Well, that worked for a while. Oh, by the way, you taught the quarterback how to do that. For everybody that complains about Donovan, Donovan was throwing passes in 2004. He definitely could not throw in 2000, period.
Jeff Kerr, I want to end it on Nick Sirianni for you. We just got dived into him a little bit with the questions from Prince. Prince, thank you, man, for the super chats. We appreciate that. I'm going to read you a short excerpt here from Ruben Frank, who does his Rube's observations on NBC Sports Philadelphia.
One of the best things to read during the week, by the way.
Yeah, he's great.
He's just need good content.
Yeah, so good stuff from Ruben. But I'm going to read you 1A here, just the first couple sentences here. What does Nick Sirianni have to do to keep his job beyond 2024? I think it's pretty clear if the Eagles don't win a playoff game this year, he's gone, and he should be. Because if the Eagles lose in the wild card round or don't make the playoffs, then you're looking at a team that reached a Super Bowl in 22, finished 2023 with a 1-6 record and a blowout playoff loss, and then failed to advance in the postseason again in 2024. That's a trajectory Sirianni wouldn't be able to survive. What do you think of Nick Sirianni coming into the year? Jeff Kerr, is he a lame duck? What does he have to do to keep his job here in Philly?
I think he has to win at least the playoff game. I mean, there's high expectations here. Like, look, if they're the 1 seed and losing the divisional round, maybe, but I think he still would have to go to a conference championship game. Like,
well, I think if they're the 1 seed and they lose, then yeah, you're done. Now, what if you're the 7 seed and you take whomever?
You beat the 2. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not even saying you win, but you
Right.
take them to the limit and you lose in the fourth quarter. Maybe they come back, whoever the 2 seed is. Maybe
See,
they
to
beat
me,
you.
I think that's disappointing because I think they're one of the top 3, 4 teams in the conference right now.
Yeah, I do think the way it ends, though, to John's point, is going to be important for how this plays out. Like if you lose a nail biter in the playoffs, or there's ways to justify that. If you go out limping like you did
I
last
just
year,
think people are so dismissive, and I'm not picking on Rube, and Jeff agrees with him. Most people agree with him. Four playoff appearances in a row in the modern NFL, and you're going to say, "Oh, it's obvious. This guy's got to go." I don't know. I hesitate with that.
I mean, I felt the same with Doug. Like I was like, okay, Doug had an impressive 2019. He got that ragtag team to the postseason, and they probably a Davian Clowney hit away from beating Seattle. But
Yeah, but Doug had the shitty 2020. If Nick,
yeah,
wins 5 games, yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, he's gone.
maybe that's just how expectations are here now.
Well, definitely. I
they
mean,
know
the
they have the
expectations
talent.
play into it. Yeah, I mean, the expectations play into it.
You know what my barometer is going to be this year, and it sucks because they don't play them. But how are you going to do against the 49ers? They do play the Cowboys twice. How are you going to do playing the Cowboys? You know what would get me over the edge with Nick? Will you beat the stinking Cowboys in Dallas for once? Why can't this franchise ever do that? They used to do it all the time.
Tough place to play unless you're Green Bay in the playoffs.
It's a tough place to play for multiple reasons.
Green Bay shattered that last year.
They were undefeated in Dallas last year until the playoff game. And they were just
that's because there's certain things change in the postseason. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah, but they were not only beating people at home, they were killing people.
You know, my issue with them is Dallas. Honestly, they're the biggest paper tigers in the world. They will beat up on the littlest of the. They are the 17-year-old that plays against the 8-10-year-old and just says like, "I'm the best player in the world," and then they play 17-year-olds.
I think you're showing your Cowboys hatred. Like what?
I hate every team. You should know that. I hate every team.
What is what is it, to your analogy, what says beating up on the 17? Who are these are NFL teams. I mean, I say it all the time.
To me, the Carolina Panthers were
all right. Yeah, they were the worst. All right. Let's take a look. 40-0.
Again, I can say that wasn't an NFL team last year.
Well, that was on the road. I just want to look at home games. 30-10 against the Jets, one of the best defenses. Remember, the Jets.
They played the Jets on a short week and they just lost their quarterback.
But still, that's a good defense. Patriots 38-3.
They suck too.
Well, I know, but these I'm talking about the scores. Rams 43-20, Giants 49-17. These are home games. Washington 45-10. Seattle stuck with them, but they scored 41.
They always beat Seattle, by the way. That always seems to be a team Dallas. Except for the Tony Romo botch snap, which, by the way, that they should have won that game.
The Eagles 33-13. The one team that stuck with them is Detroit. Very good team.
And we all know what happened in that.
And they should have won that game. Washington 30. They were just beating the break. They were killing people at AT&T Stadium, except the Lions. Lions are legit, man.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah. By the way, John, would this shock you at all if the Lions went to the Super Bowl this year?
Nope.
No, I wouldn't either.
Nope.
Definitely wouldn't shock me.
There's like a couple teams where if you told me they would go to the Super Bowl now, like,
in fact, it's early, but that's my early pick for the Super Bowl.
Detroit and who else?
San Francisco 1-2, Eagles right behind that, I would say. But I
almost want to go like Detroit, Baltimore right now, but it's so.
You're talking about AFC. Detroit. Boy, it's hard to pick against Kansas City.
I never pick against the Chiefs, even when the last year I did, and it blew up in my face.
Even when they looked pedestrian. Even when they look pedestrian, Jeff, they just figure out a way to win when it matters. And
They
there's an
have the
art
GOAT
to
head
that.
coach
And
and
yeah.
the potentially GOAT quarterback.
If
By the
I'm
way,
picking
if you
against
ever want a
Kansas
hot take
City,
out
it's
of me in the
because I'm
NFL,
tired of Kansas City. That's what I would say. What's that,
The
Jeff?
NFL's not tired of them. They got Taylor Swift over there now.
I'm
Their
I'm
fan
tired
base
of
is
Taylor Swift.
yeah, the
Jesus.
NFL is not, folks. They are loving the fan base, the girls, the women coming in, everybody supporting. It is a big money move for them to promote the Chiefs. From a business perspective, I understand what the NFL
She's
is doing.
great for the league. I love how she's in. It's just as someone who grew up around this, Swifties are a different animal, man. They
Yeah.
really
Well,
are.
and look, they already put out the story. Taylor Swift's planning to attend as many Chiefs games as she can. Like
Which
they're
she
already.
should.
I know, but my point is they're setting the stage early for another year of a lot of coverage.
I don't like when people get mad. Do they have to show her all the time? Yeah, they do. Just like they show Jason Kelsey all the time because she's Taylor freaking Swift.
Here's one more question on a super chat. I want to get both of your guys' answer to it. Our buddy James Carver, who's a great contributor to the show. Thank you, James, for the $5. We appreciate it, brother. He says, why does no one consider Eagles keeping Nick and just paying Kellen a higher salary to keep them if we succeed this year? Well, James, before I let John and Jeff answer, they did try that. At least it was reported they tried that with Jonathan Gannon. They tried to pay him the big salary, and he didn't want to do it. Most guys just want to be head coaches. John, I'll go to you, and then Jeff.
Yeah, ambition. They want to be head coaches. I mean, that's the assumption that they're gonna turn down a head coaching job. Occasionally, you saw Detroit, but what he wanted $15 million. He's just insane. So I'm not going to say never, but most it's about ambition. It's about becoming a head coach. And if you get an opportunity to be a head coach, 95% you're probably going to take it.
Not everybody's Ben Johnson and just turns them down for whatever.
Well, I wonder if that was Ben playing the game a little bit, where his situation.
He got caught. He asked for too much money, and they're like, "Dude."
Yeah, but do you think it was like I'd rather keep building this in Detroit than take $7 million and go and be the coach of the
overshot.
football team?
He shot his shot and overshot.
John,
and
I have a question
for
for
you. Back, and then
I have a question for you here. So it's list season, right? We're doing the coach rankings this week. I have nothing to do with them, but I happen to see Jim Harbaugh's fourth. No.
Well, he's a very good coach.
Hey, he's a very good coach, but he's not fourth.
Well, he hasn't been in the NFL, but
first off, Jim Harbaugh bailed on that organization the second he knew it was getting banned, which is fine to do, but that's what he does.
Hey, that's what Chip did.
Oh, Chip does it too.
But remember, Jim was a very good NFL coach before he went back to Michigan, back to college.
He's a good quarterback too.
He had been at Stanford, so he was a very good coach in San Francisco, but he's like one of those shelf life guys. People are going to stop listening to him because he's an asshole. By the way, I have a very good advisement that he's an asshole from people who worked in San Francisco.
Shock. He's an asshole.
But he won. I'm looking it up real quick. So obviously he went to the Super Bowl. It was that great Super Bowl in New Orleans where the power went out. I was there. Baltimore looked like they were going to boat race him. Then the power went out. They came back, almost came back. Came up just short. So he was 13-3. Lost to the Giants in the championship game, NFC championship game. 11-4-1, went to the Super Bowl. Lost to the Ravens.
Then we had the Crabtree game.
Yeah, 12-4. Yeah, lost to the Seahawks in the NFC championship game. So you're talking 3 consecutive years where he at least made it to the NFC championship game. And then he had an 8-8 season. 44-19-1, 6-9, almost 700 winning percentage. He was a very good NFL coach, but you probably are going to have a short shelf life.
If the stories I heard were true with him, he likes to blame Trent Baalke for why things went south.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, I remember at the time. Yes.
Yeah, and Baalke, this is what I heard Balky fire. Oh, hold on a second. You're the one telling me to pick these guys.
Well, yeah, I don't know if he should be in charge of personnel as any NFL coach. Probably should be in charge of personnel. So I would tend to agree with that. But look, I'm not. Yeah, the guy's going to be a good coach. It's just a matter of how good, but it's going to be a short shelf life because
But
people are going to get sick
you know
of it.
what, John? It's funny. We call him an asshole, but if he was like, we had to interview him every day, we probably love him because he's always good for a quote or two. He was great at the owners' meetings.
And by the way, his his Big Ten record, which you should know. I don't. It was like, what do they win? 18 straight over the past 2 years, and if you go back 3 years, 26-1.
You know what? You know what's enjoyable? Like I obviously did not like him. I knew he was a good coach, but don't like Michigan, don't like Ohio State. But it is awesome seeing Ohio State fans just in a mass panic because all of a sudden they can't beat Michigan. Well, who do you think was responsible for that?
Yeah, and that's over now. I don't. Michigan's not Michigan anymore because they don't have Jim Harbaugh.
No,
Sorry, Michigan.
And I
Sorry,
love
Martin Frank.
Yeah, by the way, I love Martin and I always joked about this when they're like, "Oh, James Franklin can't beat Jim Harbaugh." I'm like, "You beat him 3 times." He's actually beaten Jim Harbaugh quite a bit.
Yeah, Penn State people hate James Franklin.
Penn State people hate everything. I always say no one hates Penn State more than a Penn State fan, and no one hates NASCAR more than a NASCAR. Those are my two.
Just like Alabama's not going to be Alabama anymore without.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I'm fully ready.
The whole game changes, Andrew. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean they'll still be good, obviously, because it's just about paying the best players now.
Yeah.
Are you running for the Shells Friday to get EA Sports College Football?
I'm not a video game player at all, Jeff Kerr. I never was. Even as a kid, what's that?
I was going to challenge you.
Yeah, well, you would probably put the work in on me. I'm not a video game player. I never was a big video game player.
Neither am I.
Yeah,
which doesn't surprise people, but you
what a shocker! John McMullen doesn't like fun.
But well, I like fun. I just find certain things that are completely not.
Well, I think Ed Kratz and I found out what your version of fun is.
Well, yeah, fun things, adult fun things, not goopy kids things. I grew up a long time ago, and there's but you can connect with players over video games. They love that shit.
Oh, they do. It's fun. You ever want to get into a conversation with somebody, just bring up their Madden rating. I'm like, I don't even know what your Madden rating is. Why do you know it?
Oh, that is the biggest thing. That it's amazing how much they care about that, how meaningless it is, and how much they care about it.
Here's a funny story, John. So Alex Van Pelt, who is the offensive coordinator in Cleveland now? I always forget.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I talked to him back when he was a quarterback coach. I'm like, yeah, you have 51 rating in Madden in Madden 2000. He's like, yeah, I'm well aware. I'm like, just bring it up to people, and they remember that stuff. I bet you Slay knows his Madden rating every single year.
He is in New England now, Alex, man.
They all do, Jeff. It's a cultural thing in a way. I look, I don't play it, but I don't mind anybody that does. I have no problem with it. I think it's cool, but it's a cultural thing, John. Like that, there's a bunch of fans who play the game and they're like, "Oh, this guy's a 70 on Madden. He must suck." And then they don't become a fan versus one guy's at 90 and it's like, "Oh, wow, this guy can play. Let me get him the ball."
Well, I mean, that's a poor way to decide who's
I know it is.
But that's how they do it, especially on social media.
That's fine. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it's a poor way to decide who's a good.
One of my favorite stories, of just being an assistant coach over the years, was, "What do you think my rating would be in NBA 2K?" And I was like, 3. And he's like, 3. I'm like, yeah, you can't catch, can't shoot, you can't do anything. Why would I want to play with you? Oh, by the way, I'm the guy coaching you. And the whole team just started laughing.
By the way, Ken Dorsey is the Browns offense, which is kind of meaningless because obviously Kevin Stefanski, runs the ship. Very good team, by the way, the Browns.
By the way, John, I'm starting to get old. I remember when Ken Dorsey was a college quarterback. I remember Kevin O'Connell was in the NFL.
Kevin O'Connell's like 40. You should remember Kevin O'Connell.
Well, yeah. Who are other ones that were like, oh, I remember him playing? Like Aaron Moorhead, you remember when he played? Caught a touchdown in the AFC Championship game, I believe.
Yeah, Aaron, Indianapolis. Yeah, a lot of guys because they're hiring younger coaches. So,
yeah, Alex Van Pelt.
Feels like Nick's been around forever now, and he's only 43. I mean,
that's where you realize you're old, even though it was only 5 years ago. Everybody goes, "Why is Brandon Ayuk like? Why does he love Jaden Daniels so much?" I'm like, you guys do know Jaden Daniels was his quarterback in college. It just feels like Jaden Daniels was in the college for 6 years because he kind of was.
Arizona State, yeah. And that's what poor Kyrie Jackson, rest in peace, 24 years old. You see these, and unfortunately, but yeah, when in the COVID year, especially, you see a lot of older prospects now coming in, a little bit older than typically.
It feels like we're finally starting to get back to quote unquote normal, I guess, with that too, because you don't have the 6-year guys anymore after next year.
Yeah, hopefully it settles down. But that used to be a big thing for the Eagles. They didn't like drafting older prospects.
NBA's like that too.
Yeah. And they still go to that in general. Andre Sam's pretty old for the Eagles, undrafted guy. Typically, they don't go in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense though when you talk about like if you want a guy to reach a second contract, and you don't want him to be 30 years old when he gets to that. But so I get it. I do get it from that perspective.
Yeah.
John, do you get to watch as much college football as you used to?
No,
I never do either. Like people go, "How do you not know this guy?" I'm like, well, I know him, but
I don't even start with college football until it's draft until the NFL season is over.
That's kind of how I watch Penn State, I watch the Big Ten, but now with everything, I know Big Ten guys. I'll just say that. Like I'll watch the Big Ten, but
there's not enough time in the day, man.
Yeah,
they're always
You know what? That's one thing I miss about the whole broadcast and only cable, and now every game's on whatever. Like back then, you only watch what was on.
Yeah.
And you get a better viewpoint of said player because you were watching that was the only option you had.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's it's very, and even when I used to, like, you're national, and you have to pay attention. When I was national, I had to pay attention to every team. I knew so much more about the league as a whole. Now I have to look stuff up all the time. You get so hyper focused when you're dealing with one team all the time. You really got to carve out time to figure out what's going on in the rest of the league.
My Mondays are honestly, they're kind of crazy because I gotta write like one thing we learned for each team, and like I watch like full games from Sunday to Monday, and I'm just like picking something out that like it's crazy for like a little paragraph blurb, but you want to sound like you watched the game.
Yeah,
what you were talking about.
I still try to watch every game, but I don't get it done till like late in the week.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. The 45-minute condensed games are nice.
Yeah, the condensed thing has helped a lot. Yeah.
I had an editor. He's over on the gambling side now at CBS, but he would text me like Monday, and he just would watch them all in a row. He called it like a marathon, and like he always never watched game Sunday, but he watched them Monday, and I thought it was really cool. And he would just tweet like what he was seeing, and that's the only time he tweeted the whole week. It was a nice little thread he had. He's like, oh, this so and so here and this guard, and I'm like, really cool how he does that. Just takes the Monday off.
Kerr, CBS, you're really cool. We kept you late as we typically do because we love talking to Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Check out his Phillies coverage as well. What are you going to do when training camp ramps and you got to deal with both? How the hell are you going to handle that?
Training camp in the morning, Phillies at night. Those are the best days of the year.
Oof.
I can write my Eagles stories in the Phillies press box, so people will laugh. Martin Frank does it.
Yeah, but
Jeff Kerr.
Yeah.
Jeff, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks,
we appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you next Monday, all right, man?
Actually, I'll be in Myrtle Beach next Monday.
Oh yeah, Myrtle Beach.
Oh,
you're
telling
me next week.
I'll be on my beach run at this time next Monday.
Yeah, try to find Piero, like I said. He'll be on a golf course.
If I want entertainment, I will be texting Nick.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
All
Thank
right.
you, man. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Sounds
Have
great.
fun, bud.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jeff.
bud. There's Jeff Kerr joining us on Birds 365. Good stuff from Jeff Kerr. Went along with him. Only 35 minutes left to play. But I have two great topics to come up with John next. I want to talk about breakout candidates for 2024 on the Eagles. So we'll get back deep into the Eagles. And then we're going to talk some players under 25. Eagles fell on the bottom of an interesting list that came out. Doesn't really matter, but we'll talk about it anyway. Talk about the young guys in Philly. So we'll do all that next. If you guys are in the chat, we appreciate all of you being here. Some good chats up there. We got some good super chats during that segment. So I do appreciate all of you guys being here. So we appreciate that. Make sure you guys drop a like. I see everybody in there. C24, Forte, Dank, James Jones, Amber's in here, Corto. We got some good chatters. Daz, our buddy Daz, Dank Bird Game. We appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you drop a like. Stay tuned, Birds 365. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.